Let's talk about 5 of my favorite comic book cover artists. Welcome back to Comics Are Dope. I'm BJ Kicks, and this is another Top 5 Friday video. I'm actually late getting this one filmed, but lucky for you, I forgot to charge my headphones for the gym. And so we're killing 2 birds with 1 stone, and I am talking about my top 5 comic book cover artists. Now, normally this is a straight up top 5 list, and that's just not going to be the case. It's not going to be the case today. One, this is the first time I feel like I had to kind of cheat to get some names in here. And, I make no apologies, but the criteria for this list is fairly simple. These are 5 of my favorite cover artists who are active right now. So there's a lot of people that come to mind, but they're not doing a ton of active work at the moment. But basically, to make it on this list, you just got to be one of the people who, when you draw a cover and I see it at my shop, I'm interested in buying the book, even if I wasn't following the series or didn't care about the premise of the series. Like, if I'm itching to buy a book just because you drew it, you're doing something right. Now, again, the cover is probably the biggest key in selling a book to a bystander. So there are a ton of hugely talented cover artists working for both the big 2 and the independent and smaller press publishers. And so this list was a doozy to make, but we're going to get right in no particular order. One of the guys who does work that when I see it, I'm like, I want to buy that, is Ryan Stegman. And for an example of that, I would look no further than the Spider-Punk Arms Race series. Issue number 2, his variant for that Spider-Punk, featuring Spider-Punk standing in front of a Marshall amp and all the things. I'm like, man, that is just an awesome cover. And it was an issue 2 cover. And seeing that cover in advance made me order issue 1 just so that I could read the story leading up to issue 2. That's crazy. Listen, Ryan Stegman honestly is kind of an honorable mention, because while I love Ryan Stegman's work, I feel like he doesn't do enough work consistently, at least for the time being, to really make it on this list, but I had to shout him out. Another person who I would consider, this guy's actually absolutely on the list. So let's call it, entry number 1 on the list is Sanford Greene. Sanford Greene, who you may know as the artist and co-creator of Bitter Root. You probably know even more for his variant covers. Even as recently as this week, I bought Gotcha Man number 1 just because he had a connecting cover variant for it. Sanford Greene is crazy talented. I love his his ink splatter style, but just where he places the line, how he uses the splatter effect to create value and depth is just awesome. And his compositions are always great. I guess the only thing is that sometimes Sanford Greene's figures are kind of small for the cover, but when he does it, I feel like it's to show off a sense of scale and just how heroic these characters are, because they're going up against these huge threats. But if you're looking for good examples of Sanford Greene covers, all of the Bitter Root covers are done by Sanford Greene, and they're all really good. The most recent book that I bought just because Sanford Greene did a cover was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Last Ronin 2 Re-Evolution, issue 1, the 1:25 ratio variant. I have sworn off ratio variants. I'm not paying more than the cover price for a book. But that cover by Sanford Greene had me reconsidering. Luckily, I got a great deal on eBay and still paid cover price for that book. But man, Sanford Greene, when Sanford Greene draws a cover and it's open order, I buy it. No questions asked. Next up on the list is Taurin Clarke. Taurin Clarke is, I guess, a relative newcomer. He sort of burst onto the scene with Marvel a couple of years ago, doing the Miles Morales cover A's during the Saladin Ahmed run of Miles Morales. Taurin Clarke has a style that is very similar to another person we're going to talk about, but it's that sort of painted color or painted cover style. He works digitally. It's all done in Clip Studio, and it's kind of like a cross between like the painted covers and sort of a pencil, like almost like done in like colored pencil and stuff like you would see a traditional artist do. But his covers are always just so good. Sometimes they remind me of like a Star Wars movie poster. If you're looking for examples of Taurin Clarke work, he recently got the gig. He's been doing Power Rangers covers for a minute now. I think the best examples of his work are either his run of Miles Morales covers or his run of covers for the Eve Ewing penned Black Panther series that just recently wrapped up. But Taurin Clarke is one of my favorite up-and-comers when it comes to these comic book cover art. And right alongside him is the next entry on this list, and that is Matheus Manhanini. Matheus, I believe, is Greek, but I could be wrong. He's another person that works digitally. I think the first time I saw Matheus Manhanini on covers was for that Wakanda series, the anthology also put out during the John Ridley Black Panther run. But he did that cover with Shuri, which I have on a short box somewhere. And what I love about Matheus's covers is that they always look fun. The characters always look engaged. And then they're always bright. Like Matheus does these really poppy colors on his work. And again, they're just great. The most recent book I bought just because he did a cover was the second printing for issue number 2 of Black Panther, Ultimate Black Panther by Brian Hill. He did this cover with like T'Challa standing with a bunch of Black Panthers, but the Black Panthers were had a purple hue. And I just really loved that cover. So I bought it, even though I already owned that issue. So stuff like that. Matheus Manhanini does a great job, especially when it comes to presenting characters of color on a cover. Some artists just don't always get it right, but he does. Next up on the list, and yeah, I'm adding extra names to this list, Edwin Gallman, another relative newcomer to the comic space. Edwin Gallman, I'm not even sure how he got on my radar, but he also is someone who works digitally. And what I love about Edwin Gallman's covers, by the way, you can see Edwin Gallman's covers. He's doing variants for Lilo and Stitch right now on Dynamite. But he's also been getting work, both cover work and interior work from DC Comics. And so he's got a couple of Superman variants. I think he did the Superman annual cover, and he also did a story, a Val Zod story in it. Edwin takes these, he does these covers where they look relatively flat and like geometric as far as his line work, but then he'll kind of show value, sometimes like a gradient effect, sometimes like a splatter effect. And it's really hard to place, but it's like, it looks almost cyberpunky in a way. But once the colors are added, like, what he's done with the values just really translates and helps the figures to just kind of stand out, but they look cool to me. So when I see Edwin Gallman on a cover, aside from, his use of lines and values, I really just like the cover composition, the simplicity of it, and how it's digital art that looks digital, but doesn't look like, I don't know. It looks like it's taking the advantage of the fact that it's digital, but it also could be traditional. So there's that. Next person on this list is Dan Mora. Dan Mora, who you know from Batman Superman World's Finest and Shazam. Probably most recently, he's doing the Absolute Power event with Mark Waid. The simple fact is I've never seen a bad Dan Mora drawing. Like, I've just not, ever. And so whether he's doing interiors or covers, when you see his name, it's like, man, I gotta grab that. And Dan Mora has been doing a lot of covers lately. In fact, he's been doing a lot less interiors. And so if you want to see Dan Mora art, it's probably going to be on a variant cover for one of your favorite books. Again, Batman Superman World's Finest comes to mind. But he's got a lot of stuff going on with DC. Absolute Power. He did a cover for Man's Best. I didn't know that. Yeah, that's definitely a Dan Mora cover. Dan Mora can draw anything, it seems like. And that is just, man. But his Batman Superman World's Finest covers are probably the best example as of late of just how dynamic and just awesome his work is. And the last book, the last cover artist, the name that pretty much topped this list in my head when I started it is Mark Brooks. Mark Brooks is kind of like a descendant of the Alex Ross school of comic book covers, right? Like, Alex Ross is known for his signature sort of painted style. And there's, you know, plenty of people who followed in that tradition. J.G. Jones is someone who I would probably consider more of a contemporary, but you can clearly see he's in that same vein. And then Mark Brooks is almost like a next generation of that in a way. And what I love about Mark Brooks's style is it has, like, you know, things that kind of resemble the painted style from Alex Ross, but it's done in like these markers and colored pencils and stuff. There's a texture to it that is not necessarily present in Alex Ross, just because of the tools that they both use. Alex Ross's stuff looks polished in a way that Mark Brooks's doesn't necessarily. And I do think you get a little bit more as far as color tones. And like I said, just that texture from the pencil and marker that Mark Brooks is traditionally using. Of course, Mark Brooks kind of first jumped on the scene with the first book. He didn't first jump on the scene. He first jumped on my radar with the first book that I ever bought, which is House of X #1. In that connecting cover variant set. And he's been very closely associated with the X-Men. And that's probably why his name has been top of mind for me for the last few years. The most recent sort of Krakoa portrait variants that he had been doing during the fall of X were just awesome. They were, like I said, almost like a cross between someone like an Alex Ross and then like a fine artist, like a Kehinde Wiley, like just sort of adding this Renaissance flair, this high art flair for these comic book characters in a way that they really deserved it. It's like, I don't know, watching Cypher get a presidential portrait that could be mounted on the wall of the White House. Like, it's kind of crazy, right? But the most recent example of a book that stopped me in my tracks, I had no intention of buying it, but Mark Brooks drew the cover, was this brand new Spider-Gwen series, came out this week, issue #2. I'm not interested in the Spider-Gwen book. I'm just not. But that cover with the other hands reaching for her, like, I was like, yo, like, I gotta hand it to him. That's a great cover. And I almost bought it. So there are a lot of cover artists in comics, people whose names come to mind when you say cover, like Peach Momoko or Scotty Young. But those were a few of my favorites. I think I named like 7. Sue me. Come back next week for another top 5 list. Let me know in the comments down below what top 5 countdowns you want to see on the channel, and who are some of your favorite comic book cover artists. I'd love to know. So let me know in the comments down below. I'll see you in another video soon. Till then, stay safe, stay awesome, and read something dope today with a great cover. Peace.